Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's University Business Web Seminar. Welcome back. Using mobile solutions to safely reopen your campus. Brought to you today by the generous support of Transact. Before we get underway today, a few housekeeping items. For any technical support, use the chat panel at the right of your screen and select my name, Jason York, and type the question or technical issue that you may be having into the chat panel. If you're having any issues using your computer audio or prefer to listen privately, we will post a phone number and an access code in the chat window in just a moment. Also, we welcome your questions throughout the presentation. Use the Q&A panel at the right of your screen and send your question to all panelists. Don't see a panel? Click the expand panel triangle in front of any panel name. Need access to the presentation also at a later time? Everyone who registered and attended today will receive links to the slides and the archive recording. So right now, I'm going to turn it over to Dan Gretz from Transact, who is going to start off our presentation for us today. Dan, it's great to have you.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate you having us, and thank you to everyone who is joining us today for learning a little bit more about using mobile solutions with Transact to safely reopen campus. I'm joined today by John Diaz. He's our Vice President for Point of Sale Solutions, and also Matt Drummond, who's a Senior Solutions Engineer. I'll start a little bit and then turn things over to John to talk a little bit about our mobile ordering capabilities. But to start with, I think the conversation for us around mobile solutions often starts with this idea of rising expectations among students, and one of the kind of core mobile solutions that we've certainly seen an increase in interest in this summer has been our mobile credentialing capability, and a lot of that has really been one, I think, is just what we have found in delivering mobile solutions is that students have a high expectation. They don't view mobile solutions as kind of a nice to have on campus. They view it as really necessary, and they expect it. They expect to have solutions delivered down to that mobile device that they have with them, probably in some cases 24/7. And certainly what we've seen this summer is really kind of a heightened expectation, if nothing else. And that really, I think, comes with as both students and often their parents are looking forward to August and September, and students returning to campus. I think people want to have an assurance that universities are doing everything they can to enable a safe environment on campus. And so, one of the ways that we're doing that with Transact is through our mobile credentialing capability. So we today are the only campus card provider able to provision a student ID over the air, an NFC-based student ID, a near-field communication, and I'll get into kind of exactly the nuance there and what that means. But the ability to provision that campus-issued credential into either Apple Wallet or into to Google Pay, and then to be able to use that credential everywhere on campus. We're the only credential campus card provider today that's able to do that on both platforms. And the use cases that you see there on the right is really kind of the lens at which we kind of view the solution just from an enablement perspective. Our goal really, as we roll this out to campuses, is to allow for the mobile credential to be used anywhere that the physical ID card is accepted. So certainly in places like the dining facilities and door access, but all the way down to things like gaining access to events or athletic events or parking, things like that. The library is another, kind of prominent use case. So we're really, that's really the lens that we see and look through to as we help schools to enable mobile credential on campus. We're really helping with that to create that kind of contactless or touchless environment across all of those use cases. A little bit more detail just kind of around the credential itself. So again, first and foremost, what we're enabling is that credential in Apple Wallet. And in the Apple Wallet scenario, a student can provision their campus ID to either an iPhone or to an Apple Watch. Apple Watch has been very positively received. That credential is literally on the wrist and can be used again anywhere on campus. On the Android side, again, provisioning into Google Pay today supported only on Android smartphones. And really the key feature with this solution is leveraging the near field communication or NFC standard that I mentioned earlier. So for those of you unaware, NFC is really, I think today has really become kind of the gold standard for contactless transactions really on a worldwide basis. Apple Pay and Google Pay themselves, if you use that kind of in the broader payments ecosystem, if you go to Target and use either one of those payment vehicles, that's an NFC-based transaction. If you're riding a transit system, really anywhere in the world that has a contactless fare pass, that is, there's a 95+% chance that that's also an NFC-based transaction. So literally with billions of credentials issued worldwide, NFC really has become the standard. And what it, from a safety perspective, what that enables for students is this simple, kind of tap and go kind of transaction capability. So from a user perspective, there's no app to open. There's no login that's required of the student on their mobile device. They simply tap their phone at a reader, and the transaction happens instantaneously. And when I say tap, it's really, again, thinking from a safety perspective, it's, the NFC spec is really, the read range is about 10 centimeters or 3 inches. So you really need to bring the phone or the device within close proximity to the reader. You don't necessarily need to physically touch it to the reader. So as we're thinking about environments in today's world where you want to eliminate touching, we're certainly doing that with this solution. And more so, if you think about this kind of vis-a-vis the scenario that you often see on college campuses, which is, the ID card in a magstripe environment, for instance. In many cases, the student is not swiping that card; they're handing the card to a cashier to swipe. And so, again, this really eliminates that step. And in a world where handing the card back and forth is really something that you want to avoid, and mobile credential really helps to enable that. The other key piece here is this idea of lifecycle management. And so, provisioning of the mobile credential can happen really anywhere. It's done over the air, and once an administrator gives a specific student or a group of students access to provision the mobile credential, the student can do that. They don't necessarily need to be on campus. They don't need to come into the card office. And so what we've really seen in particular this summer is schools taking advantage of, in this world where new student orientations are happening remotely, new students aren't coming on campus. And so as schools have kind of pivoted to this remote orientation environment, they're more easily able to credential new and incoming students because all of that's done remotely anyway. So simply, schools are notifying students, you have your credential is now available to you. and students are able to provision that from wherever they are. They can be on the beach on vacation, and really within 30 or 60 seconds, they provision that credential, and it's active at that moment that they provision it. There's no other step that needs to happen. When they show up on campus, that credential that they've already provisioned to their smart device is active, and all of the privileges and accounts that they have set up for them on the back end are available to them right away, and they have access to all of that. Again, this is really kind of touching on, again, the idea of enabling mobile credential anywhere on campus, or really credentials anywhere on campus. These are even more of the use cases that we're enabling with our mobile credential. And again, one of the benefits to enabling the credential everywhere on campus across all touch points is providing data for really useful and meaningful contact tracing should the need arise. So essentially what that looks like is the ability to, if a student were to test positive for COVID-19 as an example, the ability to kind of track where that student was on campus, and in an anonymous fashion notifying users who may have come in contact with that person. So as an example, in a dining facility, it would be good to know that if someone went through the checkout line and they later tested positive for COVID-19, it would be good to know which other students that were transacting or perhaps in line with them, either in front of them or behind them. And so that's ultimately one of the byproducts of what we're able to produce with enabling a mobile credential across every one of these use cases. Here are some of the examples of schools that we have that are taking advantage of these capabilities. Some of these schools have been live since 2018, when we first launched our mobile credential, first with Apple Wallet. So University of Alabama, Duke University, University of Oklahoma were those first three schools that went live back in October of 2018. Some of these other schools that you see here are in process to launch. And as I mentioned, we've really seen a pretty significant increase in demand as schools are looking to things like mobile credential to enable a safer environment on campus. So this list is really continuing to grow. So our mobile credential is provisioned through our Transact eAccounts mobile app, and the eAccounts for us is really kind of the mobile card office. So again, kind of thinking along the lines of kind of eliminating touch points on campus, and one of the ways schools are doing that, again, through mobile credential, is really eliminating foot traffic in the card office. So not only with the provisioning process that I mentioned up front, but even things like lost cards. So in a card environment, it's not uncommon for schools to see a very high percentage of students who are losing their card and then have to come into the card office to get a new card. So what we've seen, and the data shows this, is in the mobile credential environment, students don't often misplace their phone. If they do, there's a mechanism on the back end for them to revoke any credentials that have been provisioned to that phone. But while students often leave their physical card in their residence hall or maybe lose it, that neither of those scenarios really happen in the mobile credentialing space. So as a result, the early adopting schools of this solution have reported back a significant decrease in foot traffic in their physical card offices. So it's about delivering capabilities and services to students where they are on campus rather than having the students come to an office to get service. And there's a lot more around with our e-accounts. It's not only mobile credentials. Certainly that's a key piece of being able to provision, but things like reviewing transaction activity, making incremental deposits to my stored value account. So as a student, I can do that within the e-accounts mobile app. Really, it's a self-service portal. So it'll really kind of eliminates a lot of things that a student would otherwise have to physically go into a card office to perform. They can do all of that with our e-accounts mobile app. Just to take you through a little bit quickly what that provisioning process. So again, just kind of pivoting from e-accounts and then kind of drilling into a little bit more into the Transact e-accounts, the provisioning process for mobile credential. So this is really what you're seeing here is the provisioning flow for an Apple phone. So student would log in, and this is assuming a student has never logged in previously. So student would log in to the e-accounts app. They would choose on the far left side. They would choose their institution. They would log in with their username and password. So that's their campus issued username and password. What we don't have shown here is an additional step of ensuring that the person logging in is the actual owner of the credential. We do also require multi-factor authentication, or MFA. So this would be something like a solution like Duo or Microsoft's Azure Active Directory, something that would require a push notification or a PIN to be entered by the student in addition to their username and password to further authenticate them. So once the student does that, once they're logged in, all they would simply do is provision, and it's kind of hidden in this a screen image on the right here. But there's an icon that says Add to Apple Wallet, and likewise on the Google Pay credential or Google Pay version of e-accounts, you'd see a similar Add to Google Pay icon. And once a student does that, again, like I said earlier, it's 30, 60 seconds. There's a process that's happening in the background, and ultimately what happens in the end is the student will have a credential available to them, and what you see on the right-hand side is actually how the credential is rendered in Apple Wallet, and that credential, as soon as it's provisioned, is available to that student, and they can use it anywhere that they're allowed to on campus. One other point that I want to just kind of call out here as you see on the right-hand side, these are obviously Transact branded credentials, but in the campus environment, if a campus was to enable this solution, all of these assets are customizable. So we're showing you, but this logo that you see here at the top, the color scheme, this what we refer to as the strip image, which is this image that is behind the student's headshot, all of those are customizable. So often what we are finding campuses doing is they're really using the same logos, assets, and color schemes that they use for their physical ID card with the Apple Wallet or the Google Pay version. And so there's cohesiveness across all three of those credential types. And they have a general or kind of a consistent look and feel, I guess, if you will. So the last thing I wanted to touch on, and then I'll turn it over to John, is just again, kind of speaking back to just to kind of tie this back to my earlier comment around student expectations, and just the success that schools have had in deploying this and in really driving adoption and driving usage. So I think starting in the middle there, you see the numbers at Duke University where 79% of undergraduates have provisioned their mobile credential, and even more impressively, 90% of freshmen provisioned. And what was really compelling to us, rewinding to the last academic year. Duke actually had 90% of their freshmen provisioned before ever showing up on campus. So again, that kind of speaks to what I referred to earlier, is around this idea of having remote orientations and students being able to add their mobile credential from wherever they are. We're seeing schools certainly leveraging that today, and not only are students adding the mobile credential, but they're using it widely. So Duke University, 87% of those that are provisioned are active users. So multiple times a day, they're using that credential to pay for things, to gain access to doors. And likewise, you see, I won't go through all the numbers, but you see the numbers there at University of Alabama, pretty similar. 75% of their resident students have provisioned. These are actually for the last academic year. And so as we head into August and September, I expect these numbers to be closer to 100%, quite frankly, both in terms of people provisioning and also people that are actively using. So that's a really quick overview of our mobile credential solution. We can certainly touch on more as we get into Q&A later, but for now, I'll turn things over to John Diaz. Again, he's our Vice President for Point of Sale Solutions, and John will talk a little bit about our mobile ordering capability.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the introduction there. Lots of great things there on the mobile credential side of things. And you'll see some of those same themes in our mobile ordering solutions. So my plan here is to give you a little bit of introduction to what we've got there, why our clients are using it, a little bit of how it can benefit folks, especially as they're returning to school in the fall and dealing with the COVID-19 situation. And then I'm going to turn it over to Matt Drummond, and Matt will go into a deeper dive of some of the newer things that we've added to the solution to specifically address those special needs that are going to be required to open back up in the fall. And we'll talk about some customer examples along the way as well. So, when we went down the path originally with introducing our mobile ordering solution, it was, I'd say, probably more of a convenience type thing. It was an alternate venue, an alternate pathway to, managing, in a lot of cases, dining operations, but other locations on campus where you might have lines. And it was a way to alleviate lines and speed up production and create other benefits along the way. But obviously, once COVID-19 arrived on the scene, it has now really become more of a necessity. So, some of the reasons folks were originally looking at our product, and we had really good uptake on it initially from our clients, they really wanted to really enhance the experience the students were getting with mobile ordering. There were a lot of clients that already had other mobile ordering solutions, but there were some things that they did or did not like about them. But, the basics were there. They wanted to enhance the student experience and enhance their satisfaction with their dining operations, have better food quality because things are available quickly and available on demand. On the back of the house, they wanted to increase their revenues, obviously, and that can come in a number of different ways, whether it is, again, through enhanced satisfaction or just faster transaction throughput, but also reduce their operating costs. So, in some cases, they've got staffing concerns where, wages have been going up and they don't have additional budget to cover those things. So trying to add technology to the mix to help do more with less in a sense. Other big thing they were telling us they'd like to see from mobile ordering, and then basically was a table stakes for them, is the ability to incentivize student behavior, drive folks to the locations they want to have more traffic at. That can be done a number of different ways through things, whether it's the rewards and incentives that are built in the app, or special messaging and different things that go along with that. And also just to solicit feedback from the students in terms of how are they doing with their operations. How's the food quality? How's the service? How do they like things? What would they like to see differently? And have that all basically in one place so they could really analyze that information and get what they needed to be able to improve their operations and realize what they were trying to get from their program. Also encouraging healthy choices in food. So, provide nutritional information, allergen information, those kind of things, extremely important these days to be able to make that available. So again, those are basically table stakes that folks were telling us that they need to see in that. One of the big things we really did here, and this is one of the things we really factored into our strategy when releasing our mobile ordering solution was to reinforce the campus brand. We wanted this to be part of the school, not a Transact product, not a Transact branded product. We wanted to be the school owned it. It is theirs. Everything from the branding to all the way to be able to manage it and tailor it and configure it to be exactly what they needed for their campus. So those are all important things that we had factored into our product. Why clients were specifically deciding to adopt our mobile ordering solution, and again, we've had a absolute explosion in the number of schools that are deploying this for back to school, which is a great thing. It's really exciting to see it come to fruition like this. I wish it wasn't related to or somewhat driven by the COVID-19 situation, but we are really looking forward to the number of schools that have joined on for back to school. But as I mentioned, the campus brand, it's something that needed to be front and center. So as Dan was saying with our eAccounts application, we wanted the clients to be able to make these all look like they go together. In this case, the application can have the school's icon. So on iOS, you can change the icon immediately from Transact to whatever the school's logo is. The colors change, the background images, all those kind of things are configurable by the school. And that was something our clients told us was very important to them. They did not want to be advertising for another company. They wanted it to be their own application, and and we'll show an example here in a moment of how schools have done that. Another big thing told us was they didn't want to make this so there were no fees to students. And especially as they're now into this the COVID-19 situation, and in a situation where this really becomes the way of placing orders, or at least the primary way that they would like folks to place orders, they didn't want to charge them fees to be able to do that. It's just how they're going to have to do business for a while when they open back up. So not charging fees to the students was extremely important, and a big shift from how other products are positioned out in the marketplace. Clients also wanted to have full control of the app and the student experience. So again, what items are showing up on there, what locations are there, what promotions are coming along, what kind of marketing communications are there. And especially in this situation, it's extremely important that information is up to date and something that they control and not have to call Transact or another vendor to change those things for them. They also want to make sure, again, it was their campus's app. There were no unaffiliated off-campus vendors in the app. We do have the ability to connect. Transact has a solution called Campus Cash that is our off-campus program that you can have off-campus merchants, and we are working on some pilots for that to allow folks to add that if they want to. But again, they would only be university-sanctioned locations as part of the app. Another big thing the clients told us that they wanted to see was seamless integration with their point of sale. So they wanted to have the same items, the same setup, the same sales history, all that information coming back and managed in a single system. They now want to have a separate set of items in POS, a separate set of items for kiosks, and a separate set of items for mobile ordering. Just becomes a nightmare to manage all of that. And so integration with point of sale was extremely important. And the last thing was to think out of the box a little bit and think beyond food. And pretty much everybody, I think, lately has kind of been thinking a lot about the food. But as you saw with even out in the real world, as we say, order ahead and delivery and curbside pickup and those kind of things, it's not just for food anymore. I mean, again, it was a convenience thing, 3-4 months ago. It's not now. It's a way of doing business for many, many operations, and it's critical. So that's something that our clients told us that they want to be able to use it across campus. And Matt will have some really good examples to talk about there of how it's being used outside of dining. Specifically in terms of COVID-19, obviously some of these are pretty apparent. It can facilitate social distancing. So obviously you don't have to stand there in line and queue up to wait on your order to be prepared. So by having scheduled pickup times or order times that give you estimated wait times, we can help manage those that social distancing and those kind of things. And Matt will talk about reservations too, which is some new things that we can do along those lines. Order pickup and delivery. Originally, our app was mostly set up for go to the restaurant, pick it up, go to the location, pick up whatever it is. Now we've got the ability to say, here's take it to this drop-off point, or potentially deliver it to a location on campus. And so those are things that can, again, help facilitate keeping large crowds from gathering around a dining location or other locations on campus where it may be very difficult to manage that social distancing requirement. Again, using it more than just for food, and again, I won't steal Matt's thunder because he'll talk a bit about that here in a moment, but thinking of locations where there could be in the campus bookstore, in the athletics group area, in the campus card office, different examples there could come to mind. So again, just thinking of how this can be used well outside of that. And we've got a number of clients looking at and already deploying it in locations that are well outside of food operations. Delivery, marketing, communications. One of the really cool things about this, and some of our clients have been able to do, is for those that had deployed before COVID-19 hit, they were able to quickly adapt and change things like, hey, here's our new hours of operation. Okay, we had to shut down these 3 locations. Here are the locations that are now open. Here's some other special information about what we're doing about your meal plans and other things along those lines. So the ability to do things within an app, it's not just about ordering things. It is also a communication vehicle to be able to communicate with your constituents on campus. And so it can be used in a very valuable way. And again, COVID has helped illustrate that and reinforce that, something we'd already built into the app, but, hadn't really thought of all the different ways it could be used. One of the other things that we found through this, and this is what's really making it possible for us to deploy the dozens and dozens of schools that are going live for back to school with this solution, is that we can deploy this remotely. It is something that we can deploy the software. It's all cloud-based. It can all be set up behind the scenes. If printers and tablets and kitchen displays, those kind of things can be shipped to the school, and they can deploy those as they see fit. The students can download the application remotely and actually start receiving things like the marketing communications, the information, start understanding what locations are on campus, what those menus may look like, without ever having to step foot on campus. And so that's a real benefit for getting this out there before back to school. And then again, the big thing there too is also to be able to have this fully managed by the school. As much as we have a great support team and a great deployment team, the ability for clients to be able to do what they need to do in the application themselves, whether that's an announcement, a communication, or it's a quick menu change or a change of a schedule because you have to change hours or those kind of things, putting that all into the hands of the school is extremely important. And our clients have told us that they really appreciate that capability of the solution. As mentioned a minute ago, we've got a number of different ways you can place your orders. You can do an order immediately. The system will, in that case, tell you what the anticipated prep time is. So you pretty much show up at that time. That counter will count down as the time gets closer. And if the order is ready, you'll get a push notification that says, hey, it's ready, come get it now. And again, that helps facilitate spacing. So you can put things in there in terms of prep time. So again, if you're trying to not overload the dining facility or other facilities on campus, you can set those prep times. You can set, I can only accept so many orders in this period of time. And that can help, again, facilitate the social distancing. Order ahead, same thing, you specify particular times when items can be picked up. And again, those time slots can be limited, so there are only so many orders that can be accepted in a particular time period. Again, helping to facilitate that not overloading of the operation. We also have the ability to do check-in. And check-in will be something Matt will actually talk a bit about in terms of the reservation capabilities of the solution. That's something that's also a relatively new feature that we've been able to adapt. It was originally developed for almost one particular purpose and actually a specific requirement of one of our partners. We've once clients saw that, like, hey, well, why can't I use it this way or use it that way? And again, Matt will talk more specifically about that. And again, the other thing we talked about a moment ago was the ability to not just pick it up, but do order delivery or have pickup locations on campus or actually delivery as well. So all those things. In terms of how this system keeps track of prep times and those estimated wait times and those kind of things, it basically learns over time. So there are a lot of different things that go into that. And again, these are things that we make available to our clients to be able to tweak these parameters as they see fit. So again, we don't have to be in there. We'll help you set them up initially if needed. But over time, the system's going to learn. And if you say, well, I think we can handle a little bit more business, or no, we need to throttle this back a bit, you can adjust things like the estimated prep times. You can adjust things as putting the system into busy mode where it says, hey, we're busy. We can't take as many orders as we normally would. Slow down that queue. And so there's a lot of sophisticated technology behind this and algorithms in here that handle that. I won't go into all the details on that, but again, if anybody wants to take a deeper dive into that at some point, we'd be happy to talk that through with you and explain how that can work and how you can tweak it for your operations, again, to help maintain that social distancing and flow. All right, point of sale integration we talked about a moment ago, just as one of our clients' big requirements. It was definitely a pain point with using some third-party solutions out there. Where those third-party solutions may be really good mobile ordering solutions, but the issue was, again, maintaining those second set of items, maintaining the second set of operating calendars and schedules. And again, especially as COVID came along and people didn't know whether they were open or closed, or what the schedule was going to be for the day, or what items they'd be able to sell, or what produce came in today and what menus need to be taken off, trying to keep that data in sync between not just point of sale registers, but also mobile ordering, and also, let's say, if you had kiosks, is a big challenge. And so one of the great things about having an integrated solution, and Transact has this with its cloud POS product, is the ability to tie that all into one system. The other thing it does too is, instead of having to have a separate printer for mobile ordering or a separate kitchen display, that can all run through the same devices that are already there on the countertop. So another thing that our clients, in opening up for back to school, that they've been able to take advantage of is, if they already had our POS and they already had either printers or kitchen displays deployed, they didn't have to add any new back of the house fulfillment equipment. They were able to just tie right into what's already there. The only thing that you can add, and it's optional, but we definitely recommend it, is there is a tablet option that can be added to this that allows you to go in and do some other things like do communication with students, if you're out of an item, or when an order's ready, or again, Matt will talk some things about the reservation side of the house and functionality, about how it lets you do some more interaction with folks with their mobile devices if you have that tablet. Again, it's optional. It may make sense in your dining locations, but maybe not in other locations. Totally up to you, and we can help you understand that. And then the other thing is, again, and this really kind of ties back to some of what Dan was talking about in terms of that tracking and that understanding.
Okay, everybody, just want to make sure that we're all set here. John, we have some trouble hearing you. Dan and Matthew, if you can jump in here. Looks like we may have lost John.
Okay. Yeah, this is Matt, and I think part of what John was referring to there was really coming back into the point of sale integration. So I'll try to repeat a little bit of what he said there, right? So that was a big component here, for everyone to be able to come into one single system that has one database for your item management, one database for reporting, right? So you're not reconciling separate systems, but being able to pull in all the different channels there on the left, from mobile ordering to our regular registers to self-service kiosks, being able to then push those out to the different endpoints, right? Self-service kiosk, going to the kitchen printers, as well as mobile orderings being able to go to a KDS screen, supporting all of that in a single thing and combining all of those transactions. This makes it for a more streamlined process and easier management from that standpoint. Now, here's some examples of how some of our Transact clients have kind of branded their mobile ordering logo, right? Again, because we view this as the school's app, so it is really all about reinforcing that campus branding. So you're not going to see anybody really with the Transact being labeled on any of these things. So Georgia Southern there, pushing out their Gotta Go solution, University of North Georgia, and UNC Charlotte with their Niner Diner type locations. We give them full control of being able to push that out because we want them to be the voice to their students, not Transact. And a lot of that also goes into a lot of the custom messaging that will be covered as well within the system. Here's another example from the UNC Charlotte and how they're doing their curbside pickup here and in-store pickup. So not only is it just food ordering locations that people are looking at, but also being able to do the convenience store pickup. Kind of like you're doing, a lot of us might be doing with the grocery store pickups, order it online. I'm going to do the curbside pickup and making sure that I'm managing my social distancing and open up the back of the car and letting them put the groceries and everything in there. So it's just another way they're using that exact same app to be able to address these types of needs as well. So people can go on to the app, place their orders, have all of that packaged up, and then be able to do either in-store or that curbside pickup as well. So when we start looking at things that are trying to address our COVID-19 solutions, right? So, you know, Dan and John have both addressed some of these types of things of what we're looking at. And really it comes down to a couple of big keys, right? Contactless payments and then creating social distancing. Right? Not only with contactless payments, but we're also looking at making them cashless payments as well, right? So from that standpoint, we want to get rid of maybe exchanging some of that cash, which might have viruses and things that are on that physical piece of things that it's exchanging between people, right? We want customers to be able to process their own payments. Even within e-accounts, they're processing their payments for deposits and stuff. But here, how can they process payments even for other departmental accounts? For instance, one school is using it for their print shop, right? Students are submitting large format prints to their 3D prints for their makerspace and stuff, and they want them to be able to pay online for those transactions so that they're not exchanging it with the staff member that's in the location, and go ahead and make that payment, and then it's a faster processing, which then limits the interaction between those cashiers. Now, when we talk about some of the social distancing pieces to that, then that's where we're really looking at some of the really new and cool features that we're doing within the mobile ordering solution, right? We had a lot of people came to us and said, you know what, we've got a real big need as we're starting to lose capacity in a lot of our places, and how do we allow us to manage that, help reduce the crowds to make sure we're observing social distancing, make those transactions faster, right? So we're eliminating the time period that people are having to interact, and then also lessen a lot of those different touch points, right? Instead of handing over your credential to a staff member, that they're going to be able to do that themselves and process it through it. So let's look at the first one big thing that we're looking at, which is the dining all-you-care-to-eat type facilities, right? So this is a really big one for some schools coming up and asking us, saying, hey, is there a way we could use your mobile ordering solution to make reservations for the all-you-care-to-eat dining facilities, right? So the challenge is their capacity is being limited. What we're seeing is one school told us they're being reduced to 25.4% capacity in their location. How do we control that? So within our app, what we've done is we've got a number of different options here. So you can allow the students to be able to schedule a time of when they want to come to the dining hall for breakfast or lunch for dinner. You can also allow them to do that days ahead. So on Saturday, you can say, you know what, you can make a reservation 5 days ahead. So based off of your class schedule, here's when I want to come to the dining hall. Then you can put things in place that then allow them to limit the number of people that are coming in over a certain time period. I'm going to allow in 100 people every 20 minutes. And those types of things that went into that algorithm that John showed you a little bit earlier goes into it, and that determines what times are then displayed to the students to be able to select for their reservation. In addition, we wanted to make sure that you're coming close to the time when you're making your reservation. So there is an early scan window. When can you scan in early enough? So if I make my reservation at noon, you know, you show up at 11:55, I'll go ahead and let you in. But if you show up at 11:45 or 11:30, I'm going to block you because that's kind of encroaching on someone else's time period, right? Also, if you haven't shown up in, let's say, 15 minutes of your reservation, I'm automatically going to cancel your reservation. You're going to have to make a new one. Again, I don't want you making a reservation at 12 and then showing up at 1 and then thinking you're going to be able to get in, because other people have made reservations for those time periods, and that might not be available. Now, as they come in, we have a number of different options in how we can allow you to either use this as a reservation-only type system, or we could actually, for the dining halls, deduct the board meal as the student comes in, creating that frictionless process, right? So as they've made the reservation, they're going to have a QR receipt on their phone that they'll scan as they come in. If you want to, we can deduct the board meal at that point in time, right? So then that checks them into the facility. So John mentioned that user check-in type process. So that checks them into the facility and then starts a counter. So you can then say, we're going to limit you to 30 minutes in the dining hall. And with that, that will then send them reminder messages based off of timestamps that you would put in there. 5 minutes before it's supposed to be over, send them a reminder message. Hey, you need to leave soon. Or when it ends at the time when the reservation is up, you can send them a message that says, hey, your time's up. please be considerate of other people and leave now, or however nice way you might want to be able to say that. In addition, you can also set a maximum capacity limit in there so you can physically control the number of people that are in there at one time, right? So you might be able to say we're at capacity and we need a hard number that says there's 100 people in the facility. That 101st person can't come in until somebody leaves. Now, if you want to make sure that you know whether that person is in the facility or has left the facility, you can allow them to scan out to open up that spot. Or as we mentioned with those reminder messages, when that order gets down to 0, we can automatically close out that reservation and open up a spot. So here's just an example of a couple of screenshots here where I can come in and come to the south dining hall there, kind of near the top of the screen on the left, be able to select what time I want my reservation, and then confirm that and pay for it with one meal. We can also process payments for your stored value to declining balance accounts or with a credit card if you want even your faculty staff members to be able to reserve a spot and go ahead and pay for that before they come in. Now, before they actually check in, we give them the ability to cancel that reservation as well. Now, people are looking at using this in another different ways, which we'll discuss here after a couple other examples. Now, the campus move-in has been a really interesting one to see how campuses are trying to figure out how to get students into the residence hall. But it's not just having to worry about the students themselves. It's the parents, it's the guardians, it's the aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, anybody else they can find that will carry a box into the facility. They need to be able to limit that. And so working with schools, what they want to be able to do is limit the number of people who can move in during certain time periods. So it allows the student right now, getting ready to come back in August for those that are opening up, allow them to choose a day and a time on when they want to move into their residence hall, right? And then with that, they can set time limits every half hour, hour, whatever their time slots are going to be, and then limit the number of students that can move in and select those time periods. In addition, once they do that, they now capture the information of who's moving in on what day, what residence hall, what times, and then they can use our push notifications and inbox messages to actually send them additional information. So a push notification might go out on a Friday before they move in on Saturday that says, hey, we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Please make sure you double check your move-in time. So looking at a couple of screens on that, down at the bottom on the left there, you've got our campus move-in there. And then I could actually select the South Hall that I'm going to move in on Tuesday, and then it displays me which times are currently available. So you can see there's times available at 8 a.m. That's a pretty early time for someone to move in. But you can see 9 and 10 o'clock are not available, but I could select one a little bit later in the afternoon and then be able to process that reservation for that. And so that gives them the ability, and then you can get a checklist that shows who are all the students moving in at a certain time period on a certain day. Right? So that's a really cool one with move-in. Now, a couple other areas, and one of the biggest ones, as you've seen, is with e-accounts. Even if you're not with e-accounts, and there's other ways that you may have done online photo submission over the summer because you didn't have to have summer orientation in person, but you might still be providing a physical credential that you need those first-year students to come and pick up, is scheduling a time for them to come in. You could do it either one of the ways we just discussed, right? You could have them schedule a time period to come in just like you would the dining hall reservation, or you can have them select specific days and times. So maybe for the first-year students, you allow them to come in a week early. You know what? On Tuesday between 9 and 11 and 1 and 3, we're going to have time slots available for you to choose when to come to the card office to get your physical credential or some other place. So you might have another location, a conference room or something at a student center to be able to do that. But not only for the first time that people are getting their campus credentials, on an ongoing basis, what you can do is similar to what we had talked about with the printing situation, is allow people to pay for their replacement ID cards ahead of time. So I'm going on to the app, I can make a payment for my replacement card. That sends a notification. So I pay for it ahead of time. It sends a notification to the card office. Hey, Matt Drummond needs a replacement card. They can go ahead and pull up my information, print the replacement card. They can use our Surface tablet here that you see here and send a push notification back out to me that says your card is now ready. I could have scheduled that based off of my class schedule to be coming in at a certain time period. But the key there is that I've already paid for it. So when I come in to get the credential, it's already printed. So I'm not waiting in line. I'm not waiting for it to be printed. And I'm now not interacting with that staff member too long in order to process a payment. I can come in, get my credential, and leave. In addition, one of the biggest keys, and where this all really started in looking at using our mobile ordering solution outside of food ordering, is with course material textbook distribution. So this started a year ago with Xavier University. Jennifer Piotti saw this mobile ordering app when we were at a NACU conference and said, hey, could we use this in a different way? And that kind of steamrolled into the projects that came in. So we helped them last year. This year we started improving on it because we wanted to eliminate the lines. The lines were only 10 minutes last year, but we wanted to eliminate the lines. And the things going on with COVID and social distancing had only reinforced what our thinking was in this process. So the idea is that, the students are coming in. So those few days before they start, they're going to have a centralized pickup location for the course materials. The students would go on and reserve a time of one of their days. So based off of their schedule, from orientations to seeing their friends and catching up and when they're going to eat, in the dining halls and everything, they might say, you know what, I'm going to come on 3 o'clock on Saturday because that's when I have an open time to be able to come and get my course material. Then what happens, it'll send a notification to the Follett team. So this is part of the Follett Inclusive Ed program where students have their books included in their tuition for first-year sophomores and juniors. And so they get a notification, they print their pick list, they pull their materials together, box them up, and then they use this tablet here to then send a push notification out to the student. Now they can do custom messaging out there that says, yep, we're now starting to put your materials together. Basically wait until we notify you to come to the facility. Don't come to the facility and stand around in a line. So then once they do that, they send the notification the materials are ready, student shows up, scans that QR code, it marks the order as picked up. So then they got a date timestamp of when they picked up their course materials. It will identify them on the tablet. They can grab their order, hand it to them, and they're on their way. Again, lessening the time in between for a staff member. So here is an example for the card office where I can actually pay for a card office ID card and then be able to come in and process that and choose a time to get my credential. Now, we're seeing a lot of other really neat places that people are looking to use this for social distancing. And so one of them that's been interesting, similar to what we saw with the dining hall reservations, the library, the rec center, right? You can schedule to be in the library for an hour, and then that automated messages would then start to let them know when their reservations are up in the library. And because they've got multiple egresses, they're not going to allow them, they're not having to worry about them scanning out as they leave. They're just going to use that messaging to say, hey, please be considerate of others, in their time to be able to use the library, and then it would automatically close those reservations. Kind of the same thing with working out in the gym. Maybe you can say you got an hour to come in and work out in the gym. Maybe you have other spaces such as the weight room or the rock climbing wall where you need to also limit the time period that people might be in those little bit smaller spaces. Even fitness classes, being able to register and limit the number of people that can come into a fitness class are things that you're seeing on here. Another one for move-in has been, it's coming back to school, is a lot of people have those week of welcome type events. And so one of the big keys is allowing you to be able to not only limit the number of people for events, but even just knowing who is being tracked to come to the event. So you know how many people you're expecting, so then you can prepare. So if 42 people say they're coming, then now you can prepare to properly social distance them. Right. So there's some other key things. We're seeing other areas like in scheduling times, right? It's all about two big factors. Do you have a large space that you need to control the crowd, the number of people, or do you have a small space where you really need to limit the number of people there and have them schedule? The mail room, as an example. Maybe you've got, we talked about the rec center areas, the health center appointments. Maybe they need to make an appointment for the health center. Academic advisors, when to be able to come and see academic advisors. You got other different campus events that are going on across the way. Maybe they need to do departmental payments, athletics, being able to schedule when to come into some of those athletic events if they ever let fans back in. Maybe it's the computer help desk. They might have a scheduling component already, but maybe this is something that could be as a supplement to it. So it becomes real creative when you start thinking about those two kinds of situations on where people are looking at using this mobile ordering solution to help with what some people are calling mobile queuing to help with social distancing.
Awesome, Matt. This is Dan Gretz again. So thank you for that. It's a good overview. It looks like we have about 5 minutes left, and there are some questions here. So I might just quickly quarterback the questions. So the first one I think I can take. So there's a question here regarding mobile credential, and the question is, how are clients using mobile credential to prepare for virtual orientations? And it's a good question, and it's one that I touched on a little bit during my presentation. So, the idea of pivoting to remote orientation, can be daunting. What we have heard from our schools that have already deployed mobile credential is they felt so adequately prepared to make that change. And certainly there's really kind of two key pieces. that are kind of in play here. One is the credentialing itself, and I kind of described that in pretty good detail. This idea of students being able to provision or add their mobile credential to their digital wallet from wherever they are, and that's obviously very important. And then the other is the communication piece. We've had a couple of really good examples. University of Alabama and Maryville University in St. Louis are two schools that have really done a phenomenal job, and would encourage you to kind of take a look at their websites. I know they have some communications out there. They really did a great job of communicating to students. And so you think about the all of the things that as a campus card, all the things you communicate to an incoming student during an in-person orientation related to the campus ID, and then kind of repackaging that in a manner that you can effectively communicate that online and to students. And so, again, those are two really good examples that I would point you to, both of those schools, to see their campus card websites have some good assets that could give you a lot of good information there. So 5 minutes left. I think maybe one more question, and then Jason, we'll turn it back over to you. So Matt, maybe this is a question for you, and I think you touched on it in pretty good detail, but there's a question here around use cases where a customer would use capacity control. Dining is an obvious one that they mentioned here, but are there other ones and specific kind of examples that you can give?
Sure. So some of the key ones that we're seeing outside of dining with that capacity management, the library is a key one, right? So being able to control when people come in and have the space, right, in the library and limit how much time they spend there. And so we've got those feature sets for that. Being able to have the capacity into the rec center. And a lot of places already have maybe some other software that might be in place, but this is stuff that then can be linked back into, at least for us, our transaction system, which can go back to some of that contact tracing that you had mentioned earlier, right? But being able to control the capacity into the rec center. It really comes down to, again, like the large spaces, controlling the physical number of people if you need to. Or if you've got events, right? I'm going to have our Week of Welcome event, and I really only have space for 100 people. Being able to have them register ahead of time to make sure that people aren't just showing up and trying to get in, and then you got to cut it off then because then they're waiting in line. They have to register ahead of time. And then that gives you a lot of business intelligence on the back end about it as well. And then when you think about some of those smaller areas that you might have, the mailroom, right? They get packages, they'll get a notification from someone that says the package is now ready, but still being able to schedule when to come pick that up, not waiting for everybody to do it in between class change at lunch, so all of a sudden have this long line at the mailroom, be able to still space those people out as well.
Great, thanks, Matt. That brings us pretty close to the top of the hour. Just a quick, from all of the Transact folks, just a quick thank you for all of those who attended. We appreciate it. And Jason, we'll turn it back over to you for closing.
All right, thanks very much, guys. A lot of great takeaways there, a lot of great information. Thanks again for taking the time out today. Thanks again to Transact for their generous sponsorship, and Dan, John, and Matt for all of the great takeaways and solutions offered there. Well, that is it for today, everybody, from University Business, who is the leader in editorial coverage of news, trends, and current issues in higher education. You can subscribe for free and stay up to date through our print magazine, digital edition, e-newsletters, and web seminars like the one you heard today. And again, thanks for joining us. And the archive of this web seminar will be available for everyone's review and to share with other members of your team at the website. You will also receive a link to the email and slides tomorrow. So on behalf of University Business, this is Jason York. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.